mentioned Liberty State Park briefly, and my question for you is how much control Liberty City and the mayor and the population have over development opportunities or other things that we're hearing about, right, in the publications, in order to keep that space that is defined by Liberty State Park and Oak Ridge Park for communities to use. So,
Okay,
and
if
your position of it.
Yeah, his question, just to repeat, is regarding specifically Liberty State Park. There's a proposal from the governor's office for some substantial development in Liberty State Park. I've been a vocal opponent of it, as has Sam. Sam, can I reach up here for a second? So for those of you who don't know, this is Sam Pessin, and the reason that countless governors that have tried to develop the park, from racetracks to water parks to golf courses, etc. And the reason that it's pristine as it is today is Sam and the Friends of Liberty State Park as advocates. So I'm going to turn it over to him, and he can give you a little bit of the high level where we are in that conversation right now. Okay?
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't hear the question, but the mayor is correct. Governor Christie's DEP has proposed commercialization and privatization plans for the park, which they are strongly pushing. The DEP has not even promised public hearings or a public comment period yet. So the mayor has been in touch with the DEP. We're trying to push to make sure, other than these rigged, manipulated stakeholder invitation-only meetings that they want, that there's major public hearings that would have to be at the park, would only have to be at the concourse at the terminal. This Thursday is the 15th anniversary of the commercial water park public hearings, where 600 people came out. 600 people came out in '91 against the golf course. I feel at least 1,000 people would come out, and many thousands would write to the state about these plans. We want a free, green park on Lake Liberty. Mayor Fulop has been from the very beginning, when this battle started a year ago, right on the front lines with the Friends, with the New York, New Jersey Baykeepers, so we're very grateful to you, Mayor Fulop. Tomorrow evening, I understand Rolando Rivera and Councilwoman Candace Osborne, Daniel Rivera, the council will be voting for a resolution supporting the park as our grade 3 open space that's deserved by future generations. So the immediate thing people can do is sign a petition, if you haven't, at savelsp.org, and you can follow the Friends of Liberty State Park on social media. Again, our email list will let you know when there are events, when there's public hearings, when we can need you to write, call the DP, the governor about this. The Bergen Record had a great editorial yesterday. Senator Minden sent a letter to me at the New Jersey Journal yesterday. So it's grassroots power that's so needed, especially with this arrogant governor. We need a massive grassroots involvement. But certainly we are very thankful, Mayor Fulop, for your administration's fighting hard for the park, as people have wanted for 40 years, and Councilwoman Waterman, all of you. Thank you very much.
SaveLSP.org is the website, and then you can sign up also for Friends of Liberty State Park there for updates.
That would be FOLSP.org.
FOLSP, Friends of Liberty State Park.org. Please sign up. There's a lot going on there. Yes?
My name is Stone Laraway. I'm from Liberty Harbor. I have a couple concerns. The first, thank you. My sincere gratitude to you and your administration for plowing our roads. That being said, this is a three-parter. I have major concerns about the speeding that's going on Grand Street. People are running red lights. They have a total disregard for pedestrians. And you know that and your administration knows, that the speed limit is 25 miles per hour. Nobody goes 25 miles per hour. What are you going to do? What is your administration going to do to mitigate enforce people to basically go with that speed limit. The other part was the traffic signs. If you're going to put a traffic sign up, make sure that you enforce it. Otherwise, why are we wasting money putting signs up? If it says no left turn, don't do a left turn. If there's hours posted that state no left turn from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., enforce it. Otherwise, stop wasting our money. Thank you.
The third.
I think that was 3. Speeding, running red light, and sign traffic or traffic.
Enforcement, basically.
How are you going to enforce it?
Major streets that people are clearly.
Yes, sir.
Columbus as well.
And it would be Grand, Montgomery, Columbus, it's those major ones that are running up and down.
I'll address at least part one, if that's okay. There always is the perception that there is not enforcement, and just as you asked the question, you heard 2 or 3 additional spots. So the resources that I have, I do move around. I move around based upon accidents that I see, but mostly by the feedback I have when I go to the meetings. In the last 28 days, and I hate to throw numbers out to counter perceptions, but we do write enforcement. 509 summonses were issued by the East District in the last 28-day cycle for assorted motor vehicle violations. That's common. Those of you who come to my captain's meetings, which is the last Tuesday of the month, we generally produce that amount, give or take, on a 28-day cycle regularly. That's in addition to all the other responsibilities we have, answering calls for service, putting officers out on foot, on bicycles, trying to be proactive in being out there. So we do have enforcement. Where is there room for improvement? There always is. I happen to agree with you, so that's very easy. Whenever I do have additional personnel, I put my manpower out. I look at my crime numbers. If I have to put a plainclothes unit out to address a crime or disorder problem, I have officers assigned to me that used to be assigned to motorcycles. Whenever my manpower allows, and it's very often these officers are trained in traffic enforcement, traffic safety. They investigate traffic accidents. We designate them a TD car. That stands for a traffic detail car. Their sole responsibility is traffic enforcement and traffic safety. If I had more, I would deploy more. This administration has been very committed to putting more officers in the academy, assigning more officers to the precinct. When I get more, I'll put more out. We absolutely could use more enforcement. I plan on doing more enforcement. Every one of those locations and a few more that I could think of, we will enhance enforcement, and I agree with you on that. That's part one.
I want to kind of share a little bit of the challenges that we have on that front, because it's not only downtown centric, and this relates to kind of police manpower overall in the entire city. So you can kind of get a picture a little bit of some of the challenges and how we are ultimately dealing with this. So, you know, Jersey, we've hired in the last 2.5 years close to 150 officers. Another class right now in this department right now going through the academy. Jersey City doesn't have its own academy. It was closed approximately 5 years ago, and we are trying to get the Attorney General to allow us to reopen it to reverse that mistake. But the challenge is that we were grandfathered in previously, and things that we were allowed to get away with prior from a facility standpoint, we no longer can get away with from their standpoint. So we're trying to find out a middle ground. That ultimately leaves us with filling spots in academies around this area ultimately. So we do that. Every single spot that's available, you would be hard-pressed to find any spot in northern New Jersey that Director Shea has not filled with a Jersey City officer. Generally, that ends up being like 40, 42, 38. I see some of the union reps here from the police department. I mean, they work with us, go through the background checks. One of the challenges that we had, and it cuts both ways on this, is that when we took office, coming from one of the most ethnically diverse cities in the entire country, arguably, when you look at our police department, it didn't reflect the city. Out of the 800 police officers, approximately, the number of African-American officers above the rank of police officer, that is the entry-level position, out of 800 officers when we took office was 1. Not 1%, it was 1. So we've made a concerted effort, which has been a model for the entire country, of actively going out and recruiting, similar to what they did in the Marine Corps, of actively recruiting minority officers and helping them test and get through the process. That said, as we have increased the number of minority officers inside the system coming into the academy, what we've also seen is a higher dropout rate and attrition rate within the police academy. So some of these individuals will get to the academy on day one when they have the drill instructor and an authoritative fixture saying do X, Y, and Z. Some of these young women come and say, I don't want to do this, it's not for me. And we will say to them, and we will literally counsel them personally and say to them, look, you are making a big mistake. This is a $100,000 job, 25 years, it's a career. There's no reason to, you're over the hardest part already. And these kids drop, despite the counseling. And what that does to us as a city standpoint is that we can no longer fill that spot. So a class that we started at 40 will then drop maybe to 32, 30, and then we'll take those officers and we have to put them into the areas where the crime tends to be the highest, the violent crime. And so we've disproportionately, truthfully, put those into the south side of the city because that's the area from a visibility standpoint that is crucial. So we've done that, essentially. And that's kind of where the policing challenges come, that nothing, as I said earlier, is nothing is so clear-cut. You try to solve one problem, ultimately, and it opens up another problem. And that's kind of what we're dealing with on the police. We're hiring, we have money, we're trying to fill as much as possible, but that's kind of where the enforcement comes in. And that's why sometimes on low-level things like traffic issues, the enforcements of some of those little quality of life things, which are very important, we'll never minimize that. That tends to be the challenge because we take those new officers and we put them into the south side of the city because, frankly, they might have gun violence there and more violent sort of crime. So we say that in order to solve that issue, it's police visibility and getting them there. And that it triggers a chain reaction through everything else. So, that hopefully is a broader picture, not too wonky, but the reality is that we're trying, I think the solution ultimately lies in us needing to reopen our academy so that we can control by ourselves the ultimate number of officers that we're putting in there. So if there's an attrition rate that's high, we're not held hostage to that. But that's been an obstacle that we're working through. We started this only a couple months ago, and it's been an obstacle to work through. Yes, go ahead.
We have time for about 2 more questions, so I'm going to ask for a couple of questions. This gentleman over here, and then that gentleman with the big shirt.
Dan Weber, DVPA. Steve, a lot of the city. Pretty easy questions here. So I've been kind of elected to ask a tough one. Are you running for governor, and why do you run?
So the short answer is, it's complicated. No, I'm kidding. The short answer is no, as now, and that's not a coy answer. I love this job, right? And if the cards were to end in my political career, they give mayor of Jersey City, I'm happy with it. The dialogue has opened up truthfully where people say that I have an opportunity in this and we are exploring it. I'd be disingenuous with you if I didn't say that we are exploring it. That said, I couldn't tell you for certain where we would be in a year. And that said, in a year, if I don't think that that is something that I really want to do in my career, I wouldn't do it because I really do like this job. So there's no clear-cut answer one way or the other, Do I try and build relationships? Yeah. Do I want to explore it if it's there? Yeah, we kick it around a little bit. Is there an urgency that I want to leave? Absolutely not. So it's a little bit more complicated than a yes and no sort of answer.
Austin from the phone industry here. I want to start by saying how appreciative I am of your plea for a holistic approach to things and to elevate the debate beyond more, kind of pros and cons. But I wanted to say that something that would help, I think, elevate everyone's debate and help everyone take a more holistic view on things is, in fact, a master plan for Jersey City, updated one. Because I think that if we look at the master plan as a kind of a restricted straitjacket, I can see why, your response about flexibility is valuable. But I think we need one not as a straitjacket, but as a document of common aspirations, right? Common vision, so that we can measure flexibility when it's needed, so that it's not just about us trusting you, but also for you to place trust in us so that we can look at it together.
So, here's my commitment on that, and I hear you, and I will tomorrow reach out to our planning department, and I will ask them why it hasn't been done first, to try and, before I say in absolute terms that this is what we're doing, let me at least first find out from their standpoint why they've taken an approach that hasn't been done citywide or updated. If the simple answer from them is that, we like it better this way, or we didn't see a reason, then I'll work with you, we'll hire somebody, an independent person, and I'll do it. I'm totally in line with that, and you have my commitment that we'll do that. So I'll write it down on my list of follow-ups here, which I have down here, and I will send to Jeremy tomorrow, clearly a follow-up on that, and I'm not opposed to it. Okay, so it's not something where I'm saying no. I'd just like to find out both sides. If all things being equal, I can tell you that I can commit to that, and we'll move forward on that. And like I said, I work for you. It's not lost on me, right? So the happier you are in Jersey City and living here, I feel it reflects on the job that we're doing. So, more often than not, some of the questions here tend to be tougher questions. I get that, and there's some misinformation or some exact difference of opinions, which I have my own opinions on. And those happen to be the harder questions. And I think in most of those that I'm protecting your interest ultimately, because my job is to be engaged in this 24 hours a day. Your job is not to be engaged in it. Your job is to trust the fact that we are engaged in it 24 hours a day. And that's kind of where I ultimately fall. If you want something done, I'm willing to do it. I'm not going to be an obstructionist as long as we can afford it. I'm good with it. So I will follow up with Jeremy tomorrow, and then if you can disseminate that information. Does that work? Fair? My takeaways here, broad picture here, what I'm going to be following up ultimately with the DCNA leadership on is enforcement on some of the quality of life things. Enforcement on parking is a two-way thing that you guys are going to get me some information on. Speeding on Grand Street and whatnot, we will enforce that in the near term. We'll try to be aggressive on that. I promise that we will ask for an independent person to do the water. I will get some information around that, and we'll start the process on that to do water testing to make sure you're okay. The redevelopment plan, a master plan, ultimately for the city. I will get some information on that as a follow-up as well for here. Newark Avenue enforcement in the spring. That's going to be more of a spring follow-up, but setting up a larger plan for what we're doing over there. Flooding barriers, I'll try. And I'll try and figure that one out. Liberty State Park and the Jersey Avenue footbridge, working with you guys to make sure that the traffic access is one that's acceptable to you and doesn't hinder what you guys are building and I'm building down here ultimately. Did I miss anything? Citizen advisory, I didn't hear that, citizen advisory.
Yeah. Could you look into 46 Bentley Avenue? Could you do that favor?
Citizen advisory council.
I would give you the advice to look into it.
Okay, sir.
That is what you said, your administration has done. I'm only asking.
Okay, so a lot of these things are big picture things. I think the other piece of this would just be, we're going to follow up on the one time, but the continued communication on these bigger picture issues with the DCNA. I was thinking it might be good to put some time on our mutual calendars where we could touch base, every however many months it makes sense, and see where we are on some of the larger scale issues. Is that something that you would be willing to do?
I like the question. It's all loaded questions. Do you agree? Okay, so let's put something on the calendar. Let's do this again in 6 months, okay? And then it'll be tangible, hopefully progress by then. Those of you who are, my email, I think the entire city has it. I'm very accessible on that. If you email me, I will respond. So if there's not something that that you got right here. Email me directly personally. Don't post it to Facebook, to any of those threads, that you won't get a result that way. If you email me, they all have my email address. I'm happy to respond and work through that. And that's about it. We'll go to LITM for a drink if anybody wants to join. You're all very welcome. And thank you all for coming.